Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another episode of Call of Duty Zombies Myth-Busting Mondays. In today's video, for the final myth, we are going to be testing if whether or not that the Astronaut zombie on Moon can respawn you if you have died if you use the Killing Time Gobblegum. So that's what we're going to be testing here at the end. If you guys have a myth of your own that you would like to have be featured in next week's episode, please put them in the comment section down below, or you can put them in my Discord server, which is going to be linked down below in this video's description. But with all that being said, guys, I hope you end up enjoying this week's episode of Call of Duty Zombies and Myth-Busting Mondays. Myth: does Leroy prefer booze over candy? Alrighty guys, so myth number 1 is going to be submitted in by Dr. Zed, aka Dan, and what we're going to have happen is that me and Dan are both going to go up to Leroy, and then we're both going to slowly back away from him and see who he prioritizes. Does he prefer one or the other, or does it really not matter? Maybe it's just like who he sees first. Alright, so me and Dan are now backing up from Leroy, and it looks like that initially Leroy prefers candy because he is going after me, and me and Dan are roughly about the same distance from Leroy. In fact, Dan actually got up right in front of Leroy and tried to get his attention, and nothing really changed. So instead of jumping to conclusions, I just decided to run around a corner where Leroy couldn't see me and just leave him with Dan, and just see if he decides to go after Dan since he's the only one that he can see. But even when I run away from Leroy, he doesn't prioritize the booze. In fact, Dan knifes him and he sprints further away from Dan and goes after me instead. So it looks like Myth 1's busted. I'm pretty sure Leroy just prefers candy over booze. Now this very well could just be a fluke, but we had it where we tried multiple different methods, including just giving Leroy no choice but to consume the booze. But he eventually found his way to whoever was holding the candy. Myth: can you use anywhere but here to teleport off the lunar landers in Ascension? Alrighty guys, so myth number 2 is going to be submitted in by Lava. Now, Lava also wants to know that if this does work, does this contribute towards unlocking Pack-a-Punch on the map? Because for those of you guys that don't know, you have to ride the lunar landers to activate the Pack-a-Punch on Ascension. Here's the thing that we found out from our testing, though, is that it's not even going to be able to get that far because when you activate a lunar lander, you can't use Gobblegums. You get this red animation underneath of it, showing that it will no longer work until you're off of the lunar lander. I'm trying to spam the Gobblegum to see if I can find a frame where I can get it to work, but it unfortunately will not work until I've completely finished the lunar lander ride. So Myth 2 is busted. You cannot use anywhere but here on the lunar landers, and this also therefore means that you can't get off of them early to try to cheese the Pack-a-Punch. Myth: can you use Killing Time to survive the Eisendrache rocket test? Alrighty guys, so myth number 3 is going to be submitted in by my buddy Tyler. Now what we're going to have happen is that me and Dan are going to be spectating what happens with God mode on, and Tyler is going to try to pop Killing Time just right before the rocket test officially ends up taking place. He's then going to see if before time runs out if he can take the launch pad back to the spawn and technically be able to defy death and be able to escape the rocket test. So the rocket test is now starting to take place. Tyler is going to pop Killing Time roughly about 4 to 3 seconds right before the countdown reaches 0. But it looks like that even though the rocket does freeze, it still kills Tyler anyway, because it looks like that Killing Time cannot stop the animation. So it looks like that Myth 3 is busted. It seems that Killing Time doesn't affect the rocket launch on Eisendrache. It's one of the only few things I have found thus far that does not get frozen by that Gobblegum. It seems to make an exception here. Myth: can you save yourself from falling off the spawn and buried with the Paralyzer? Alrighty guys, myth 4 is submitted in by Ace of Spades. So what's going to happen here is that Dan is going to be using the upgraded Paralyzer called the Petrifier, and he's going to use it to get back into the spawn of Buried, where the M14 and the Olympia are. He is then going to jump into the giant crater that you can see in the spawn and see if he can bring himself back up into spawn with the Paralyzer's flying feature. Now it looks like that when Dan initially falls off, the Paralyzer doesn't save him. He just falls out of the map and he hits what would have been the equivalent of a death barrier. Now the weird thing is though is that if he jumps and then does this, he can sort of fly out of the map and then quickly get back to the spawn if he's not too far away. The thing is though is that I can't explain why that this takes place. So if Dan falls and then activates the Paralyzer, he can't save himself. If he jumps and then he activates the Paralyzer, he could debatably save himself. Because if you compare this, where he's falling right after he jumps, And then you compare it to something like this, where he's flying plenty high and plenty far out, and he even gets back into the map in time well before that the paralyzer starts to overheat. I want to say that this myth is at least plausible. I originally thought it was going to end up being busted because, well, technically, in my mind, what I think as falling out of the map and saving yourself is that you slip and then you activate the paralyzer. But you very well could accidentally jump out of the map and then quickly save yourself. You don't necessarily have to be already descending before you activate the paralyzer. You could be already slightly in the air. So I'm going to be a little bit more lenient and just say plausible instead of completely busted. Alrighty guys, but now we're moving on to the final myth of the episode, and once again is going to be, can the astronaut on Moon respawn you if you have died and bring you back into the map? This is a very unique myth, and you'll see what I'm kind of getting at here when we get into the actual gameplay. But actions speak louder than words, so enough with my talking, let's get into the final myth. Myth: can the astronaut on Moon respawn you back into the map if you die? Alrighty guys, so the last myth of the episode is going to be submitted in by FaderCat3169. So what's going to happen here is that we're going to use killing time once again on the astronaut. What we found out in last week's episode is that if you use killing time right as the astronaut is grabbing you, while killing time is active, you can escape from him and he won't take your perk. But if you don't kill him before it wears off, he will still teleport you and steal the perk anyway. So if that is the case, if we do that again, but we decide to jump off the map before the killing time wears off, does that mean that if killing time wears off, it will respawn us back into the map as long as the astronaut zombie is still alive? So now with the setup process being explained, let's test the final myth. Okay, so Tyler is about to activate killing time right as the astronaut grabs me here. And it looks like that he does do it successfully, and so now I'm going to immediately jump off the map and technically die. Now it's just a waiting game. We just have to wait for killing time to wear off and just hope and pray that the game decides that, hey, you know, I got grabbed successfully by the astronaut. Is it going to put me back into the map even though I'm technically dead? So it's a matter of time now, guys. And it looks like that things are moving again, but I am unfortunately still dead, which therefore means the final myth is busted. If you have died, you're not going to respawn back into the game. The game does not think that far ahead, and I don't think that they would allow you to do this anyways, because technically this would make it where you could never die then. But yeah, everybody, that is going to be here for today's episode, and I do truly hope you guys ended up enjoying it. If you did, please consider dropping a like, comment, subscribe, follow, and all that beautiful stuff. And once again, if you have a myth of your very own that you want to have be featured in next week's episode, please by all means put in the comments down below, or put it in my Discord server, which is once again going to be linked down below in the description. But with all that being said, guys, I do truly hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTubers we're ever going to see. Thank you for watching, guys. I love all of you, and peace out.
Hey, meme lords, Jesus here. And you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too. And give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!